Hi everyone, this is Norman Koshnak here for Eyes on Cricket with Norman Koshnak. I'm here tonight. I've got a lot of things I want to talk about, but I also have David Graveney, who's graced the airways for us, and he has a lot to offer, I'm sure, especially around some of the passing, such as Rod Marsh and obviously Shane Warne, and some of the ways that England are playing. I remember some of the changes made there, even perhaps the head coach, and also the current Australia-Pakistan series as well. So welcome, David.
Thank you, Norman. I haven't spoken to you for a while.
Yeah, I know. I've been busy doing Australia-Pakistan stuff. But it's been very interesting because, and very sad to see the passing of two incredible cricketers on literally the same day.
It was actually because I'd obviously worked. Well, I knew Rod really well. I played against him as a player, but when he came, and it actually was very much on my recommendation. It wasn't my decision, but my recommendation, having been on the England A tour to Australia, which Rod was still involved with the Australian Academy at that stage, and we played against, and this is a tour that had Michael Vaughan in it, Ashley Giles. A lot of people went on to play for England. It was a really strong team, and met Rod there. And when I got back to England, Hugh Morris, who was then the managing director of England Cricket, he said, we're looking at people to run the academy. I said, well, I'm not sure what Rod's future intentions are, but if you're basing it on quality alone, he is just a fantastic bloke, in terms of running the academy.
And he was well loved.
I might have been party to him making that decision to a degree. He then progressed to be a selector for England for a period of time, which I think sat with him okay. I don't think it was and I think that actually is a bit of a clue to people saying, if Justin Langer, wants to become the England coach, if that's what England want, I don't think it's a handicap. I think people get their head round of it. I think immediately after being removed from your position, you may have a view, but that sort of dilutes in a period of time. So, but Rod's contribution to me personally was immense, in terms of understanding him as an individual, teaching me how to, make difficult decisions and don't fudge them. He always felt that English cricket fudged decisions and made it much more complicated than it should be. So yeah, it's that was sad enough.
Photo.
And then for Warney to die as well, and I'd met him sort of when he was a player, obviously on the other side playing for Australia, always very personable. And I know this is a well-aired view, but having seen him or listened to him talk about cricket and seen him in operation, he would have been a fantastic captain of Australia. And I know that's been aired by many people, but obviously there were things that happened off the field that would have made that very difficult. But then when he was captain of Hampshire, he was really, really helpful to me as being a selector, and he would be the ultimate. I could go and see him and say, what do you think about player X? And he would give me a really honest, and obviously coming from him, a really meaningful contribution. He did draw the line at me of talking about players when they're going to play against Australia. He said that's one step too far. So I respected that, but it's just sad, Norman, particularly at his age of 52. That's no age.
And the fact that he actually tweeted an RIP or a veil to Rod Marsh.
Yeah, I know. It was
only
just
an hour passed away. Incredible.
Sort of because my kids have met Rod, so we were talking about Rod, and then my son said, "Well, have you?" Because I was away on holiday. And saying about Rod Marsh, about Shane Warne. I said, what do you mean about Shane Warne? Well, he said he's passed away as well. So very sad day for cricket, actually, though, around the world.
Absolutely. I mean, not forgetting Dean Jones, not that long ago, passed away as well.
And I played with him, so it was it was a triple, whammy, really. So very sad.
And it happens in clumps because Peter Philpott, Alan Davidson, and Ashley Mallett also passed away in a clump about 6 to odd months ago as well. Well, actually, not that long ago, or like a few months ago. So there's certainly been some notable people pass, and I know that
Australian cricket, Norman, has suffered some real blows of legendary people departing. Now, I think everybody understands when you get to a certain age, you've had a good innings, if that's the right. It doesn't sound too corny, but it's like my father. My father's a great loss, and think about him every day. But he was 90 years old, as was his brother Tom. And that's as sad as it is. You've had a good run. So, but 52 no age, and Rod was no age either.
It's not like it's a shock. It's something that's going to happen. That's true. It's kind of inevitability, I'm afraid to say. But in the case of Shane Warne, though, of course, that was way too early.
Yeah.
And he could he have coached England? Was he on the cards to coach England?
Well, he's basically being coached in terms of the 100-ball game. So he spends a lot of time in the UK. I think it was really. I think if he'd opened up and said he wanted to do the job, I'm sure that people would have started talking to him because his knowledge is unbelievable. And also, he makes his teams. Though actually, having watched him play for Hampshire, as an individual, he was actually quite defensive, particularly around his own bowling. He liked a few scouts out. He didn't want to put too many people around the bat from the word go. But his knowledge and his attacking intent would have been extraordinary. But I might have been one step too far for England, but you never know. So
the other interesting thing is, we're going to talk about England a bit later and how they're going against West Indies because clearly, Ben Stokes got 120 was overnight.
Yeah.
He's now plus 5,000 Test runs, and Joe Root scored a decent century as well. He's almost close to 10,000 Test runs. Some milestones there. But one of the themes of today's discussion I was setting up was around the top batters of the world. Now, after having seen Babar Azam bat against Australia with that 196.
He batted for a week, Norman. So,
well, yes, but it was a pretty impressive knock. It was quite.
I've watched a lot of that. I would have to say I'm a bit. I know that match got to a reasonable conclusion, but the wickets, both in Pakistan and in the West Indies, are just a bowler's graveyard, really. So. Whereas the game against India and Sri Lanka, I know Sri Lanka are having some problems, but that deteriorated at the right sort of time. It spun properly. So, but the Pakistan wicket literally did nothing virtually. I know Nathan Lyons was getting some spin towards the end, but if you're a seamer, unless you can reverse it a little bit like Stark, then. Yeah, it was a hard slog for them. I'd be interested to know how they shape up for the next Test match, wherever that is. That's in Lahore, isn't it?
Yeah. Okay. Look, even though it was a bowler's graveyard or a batting paradise, I'm a person who rather likes seeing Test matches like that. I don't always want to see bowlers get lots of wickets. I like to see batters dominate, and I don't mind that. And the way that second Test went was quite intriguing towards the end. And you got to give it to Pakistan. They came back after only scoring 148 to go only 60 runs short of the 500 total they were given. It was pretty impressive. And in particular, Babar Azam and Rizwan batted well, and Shafiq. And in fact, 5 of the top 6 batters in the Pakistan team out of both Tests have scored centuries.
Yeah.
And only the one Australian batter, that is Khawaja, has scored a century. That's an interesting comparative stat, though, isn't it?
Well, I think they excuse me, in my experience in my little world of playing, that having bowled at international Pakistan batsmen, spin does not cause them any problem whatsoever.
No. But Babar Azam.
I can remember somebody telling me about Majid Khan, who would be one of my favourite players to watch. When in England they were playing on uncovered wickets, and in the dressing room, because he played for Glamorgan, they were discussing how difficult it was to play on uncovered wickets against a particular bowler who was a guy called Don Shepherd, who bowled a bit like Derek Underwood, like fast spin. So on an uncovered wicket, it was very difficult to play. And he said, you guys don't know what you're talking about. So he didn't have any pads on. He took him out into the middle and played Don Shepherd just with a bat and showed the other guys how to play. So, the likes of Javed Miandad, Mushtaq Mohammed, Zahir Abbas, who I played with, fortunately, they were fantastic players of spin.
Have you been to Pakistan?
Yeah. No, I played. I've been to Pakistan both as a manager. It's a sort of one-day squad before playing practice matches in Lahore, and then going to Dubai to play in four-corner tournaments. And then as a player, I was invited to go by Zahir to go and play in his benefit match at Sialkot, which was an interesting experience on lots of fronts, really, more than anything else. If only just he and another guy that played for Gloucester, Phil Bainbridge, we went on PIA because he worked for PIA in some form or other. He met us where the luggage came out, which means that's the other side of passport control. When he came out of the airport, he was mobbed by the crowd, basically. So we managed to find a way of getting out there. Went to his house, and there were 50 people on his lawn. And I said to Zeb, what is all that about? He said, well, they've just come to say hello. So he sort of sat there and talked to them for a while. He said, well, why don't you go up to the bedroom? There are some cassette that shows you how long ago it was of cricket. Why don't you watch them? And they were cassettes of Zahir playing in the World Series. And they only lasted for the period of time that he was actually batting. So once he was out, that was the end of the DVD. So there were just loads of him batting and whatever. But it was a really enlightening thing and it's a fantastic country. And if you get used to the fact you might have somebody sitting outside your bedroom with a gun, sitting on a chair, it was really good. It was just different. You get a feel for a different country than just a normal, really nice hotel. But that nice hotel could be anybody in the world. So their passion for the game was fantastic. The Pearl Continental in Lahore is where the teams and officials were staying when they were attacked on the way to the ground. Certainly one of the best hotels I've ever stayed in. But the ground next door to it.
Where was that?
In Lahore.
In Lahore itself, yeah.
Yeah, the team will be playing. The sides will be staying there for this test match, or test match coming. But there is a really pretty ground next door, which Majid Khan plays for. It's his club team. Right. So at this stage, he was over 50, and they were a man short. So he reluctantly made up the numbers, and he's got 50 in that game. Kept smashing Darren Gough and Angus Fraser all over the place. So just an exceptional player. Exceptional man, actually, because they brought him in as the chief executive to, he didn't last very long because he wanted to clear up the perceived corruption in Pakistan cricket.
So Gaddafi Stadium in Lahore, you've been to that ground.
Yeah.
And they're talking a bit about the pitch. It's apparently a pitch which is not spin friendly, it's more pace friendly.
Well, that's I don't know whether you listen to the commentary, and if you get the same stream as we do. They were comparing the figures of the scene. I don't know, Waqar Younis and Wasim Akram were exceptional bowlers, but you had Imran before that, Safraz Nawaz, Shoaib Akhtar, and then you compare them against Sak Lane or even Mushtaq Ahmed. The seamers were taking wickets. This is in Pakistan at low 20s, and the spinners were taking wickets at 30s. This gives you a fair indication of they. I think they play spin really easily. I think that they were the introducers of reverse swing and understand how what the ball can do, either legally or in some cases illegally. But they, Sarfraz Nawaz is regarded as the originator of reverse swing and teaching Imran Khan how it operated.
And look,
it will be, and it's much more north. I don't know whether you watched any of the Pakistan Premier League or whatever they called it. It's pretty cold at night this time of year. So I don't. Are they contemplating a day-night Test match, Norman, there or not?
In Pakistan, no.
Yeah, no.
This is the last day. This is the last Test match in the day. The only day night at the moment are being played in places like India, but not in Pakistan. Okay, go back to.
Well, they played it. Wasn't Karachi? No, that wasn't a day-night game, was it? Sorry, carry on. When I was confusing him, so it was the Indian Test match that was a day-night, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was the one at Chinnaswamy Stadium down at Bangalore. That was a day-night Test match,
yeah.
Which didn't last very long, of course, because Sri Lanka didn't put much of a fight. I was just talking about the leading batters around the world. Now, Joe Root clearly has to be ranked either 1 or 2 at the moment based on his form over a prolonged period of time. But I think Babar Azam would probably be up there 1 or 2 as well. It's between Babar Azam and Joe Root as the 2 leading batters in the world at the moment. Labuschagne had a moment where he was, but I would argue, fallen away a little bit in the last few tests. Joe Root and Babar Azam are the 2 for me. I can't comment on Steve Smith that much because he hasn't played that many innings. Virat Kohli hasn't been in great form, and Kane Williamson's been injured. So I would say Joe Root and certainly Babar Azam now are the 2 that we are talking.
Yeah, and Babar Azam has only played a fraction of the Test matches that Joe Root has played.
Yeah,
but he showed in that innings his qualities of how to play. They're exceptional players. And the other 3, you and I have spoken on this program, and I didn't want to be a pessimist, but I said to you, I thought Kane Williamson had a serious injury with his elbow, and I think that is still the case.
Yes,
unfortunately, he doesn't bowl, so Steve Smith might be up there, but Labuschagne is really good, but you wouldn't compare him to Babar Azam or Joe Root. Joe Root is an exceptional player, and the amount of run hundreds he's got in the last limited period of time, he's got as many as all those other players put together virtually.
Oh yeah. Oh look, Joe Root's on 9.875 or thereabouts, 25 centuries. And the way he's going, he's probably, as long as he's fit, he will continue to go ahead and probably pass Cook at some stage in the next few years.
No, he definitely will, as long as the team gets some results, and they look. Obviously you come out of being battered by Australia in Australia, and I've been there sort of 2006-07. As fantastic a country as Australia is, that is actually quite a difficult place to go when you're getting battered playing cricket, because there's plenty of people queuing up everywhere to tell you how poor you are. So I think it's a nice place to go. If you go to Antigua, Barbados, and Grenada, they are beautiful places to go, and they look to be enjoying it.
What's your favourite place in the Caribbean? What's your favourite island? Have you got a favourite island?
Well, I've only really gone to. I've been to Antigua.
I love Antigua.
But Barbados is where I went there sort of in the early 80s before it got developed, and it was. And I don't know how to phrase this, Norman, but my uncle, his standing in Australia, because he didn't get that many runs, is entirely different from his standing in Australia in the West Indies. where they regard him as King Tom. That's his nickname because he's
King
got some
Tom.
reason. Yeah. So at that time, they were just lovely people. The three W's were still alive.
Wow.
Gary Sobers, played golf with Gary Sobers. They were
World
all
class.
good friends of my uncle, and actually my
Wow.
father played against him as well. And he tells me that as a 10-year-old, he invited them back to our house for drinks after one day, and some of them came up and sat on the end of my bed. I was obviously fast asleep, but he did say, "Well, did you know you had Frank Worrell sitting at the end of your bed as a young man?" So yeah, I've always had a great affection for Barbados, I must admit.
Look, there's a mystique about the West Indies, and so I guess your uncle, did he cross over? Did he play? He played against Sobers.
Yeah. He said he thought that Sobers, particularly if he hadn't got any runs as a batsman, bowled faster than Wes Hall.
Really?
Yeah, because he was so angry.
That's interesting.
But no, he said in his era, difficult to compare eras. He thought Gary Sobers was the most complete cricketer he'd ever seen.
Oh, there's no doubt about that. I mean, he's the he's the ultimate all-rounder. He was one of the 5 Wisden cricketers of the century, of course.
Yeah.
Wasn't he? So obviously,
if he could bowl seam, he could bowl finger spin, he could bowl wrist spin. He was a fantastic close to the wicket catcher, and his batting was just until Lara came onto the scene, I've never seen a back swing and a follow through like Gary Sobers. It's like as if he was playing batting with a golf club. The length of his swing of bat. So I have got him actually, Norman. I have actually got him out twice for naught.
Right.
When he was playing for Nottingham in the Sunday League. And I can assure you that he was not defending either delivery. He was trying to hit it in the next field somewhere. So.
Amazing. So look at it. Sir Garfield Sobers, Sir Vivian Richards, they're clearly 2. And Sir Donald Bradman, we get those 3 pretty clearly. Obviously, Shane Warne, not knighted, of course, which they're talking about doing it posthumously, aren't they? Getting him knighted.
Yeah.
And then Sir Jack Hobbs. Now, Sir Jack Hobbs, when I look at his stats, test-wise, they're not as overwhelming as perhaps I thought they might be. I know his county level cricket was outrageous and his first class cricket was outrageous. Why do you think? Can you tell me in your words why Sir Jack Hobbs was included as one of the top 5?
I'd probably challenge it the way that you have, actually, Norman. But again, it's difficult comparing eras. It's like somebody, if you and I were engaged in a conversation about the ability of W.G. Grace, we would genuinely not have a clue of whether he put the bails back on when he was bowled or whatever. Those sorts of stories, and that would be the same thing about Jack Hobbs. I know very little about him. More importantly, I've never really met anybody who's played against him or seen him play. Probably the people that I would have met would have had to seen him as a very young person, the person watching. So there's no evidence that would suddenly say, "Oh, well, he's on the same par as Bradman." I knew there's enough people that I've met in my life that had seen Bradman play, played with him, and I can remember speaking to Harvey about Bradman, and he just said he was just fantastic. And it's the same about Gary Sobers. I'm joking about, I did get him out for a couple of low scores, but this was really at the back end of his career. And actually, Tom was the person I needed to speak to, because when they brought him back to play Test match cricket in the 60s, Gary Sobers was at his peak then.
Oh, no doubt.
In all facets of the game.
Yeah, I regret not seeing him play, I must say. Okay, let's get back to the top batters. A lot of the people who are watching today are asking me questions in the commentary on the side here. At the moment, Joe Root alongside Babar Azam have to be rated the top two batters, I would argue. And from Australia, we talked about Labuschagne, we talked about Steve Smith, but I would argue, especially over the last 6 to 8 months, Usman Khawaja, I tell you what,
he's playing very well. Yeah.
He looks to me as if he could conquer both Sri Lanka and India the next few series and really put a stamp on his batting and go past 5,000 test runs and get onto the so-called board for batsmen. As you know, on Cricinfo, if you haven't got 5,000 runs, you don't get on the list, the main list. But yeah, I mean, I would argue Usman Khawaja is our best batter at the moment, even though Steve Smith's records are amazing.
I think Usman needs to just have a really concentrated run of playing in the team, so that in a short period of time he plays against everybody all over the world. In other words, he's challenged by the Duke ball in England, regardless of who's bowling it, because it's always been perceived in this country, and there's plenty of evidence that the Australians struggle to play against a swinging ball that swings for a long time, which the Duke ball tends to do. Now, that might be part of Andrew Strauss's, high performance review in terms of what has to happen within our domestic cricket. I've always been a believer that I think in England the combination of the conditions and the ball is the perfect storm in terms of bowling, at the detriment of slow bowling in this country. That actually you can get away with playing 5 seamers rather than, a combination of seam and spin, because you just don't need spin. So that would be so. But Khawaja is making a really good case.
Oh, absolutely. It arguably is. I mean, I've got I'm a little bit negative about Labuschagne, even though he's done very well. I think he's starting to show a bit of a weakness coming through on his batting, and I think that when he has a run of bad scores, which all batsmen go through, I want to see him come out of that and do well after it. That's to me a test of a batter. And you go through any of the Australian players like Ponting, even Clark, Border, even Greg Chappell, had pretty significant little slumps.
Yeah.
Some say they got through it and they got out of it. And that's my test of a top batsman. So, okay, Babar Azam is, look, most of the viewers, because we've had a very strong Pakistan, I probably picked up about 8 to 10,000 subscribers of late from Pakistan. They've been mad about this channel, about their country, and Babar Azam has been at the forefront.
I think, Norman, you can now attach his name with all the blokes that played when I played, like Javed Miandad, like Majid Khan, like Zahir Abbas. He is proving himself to be in that sort of bracket as a player, which is about the highest compliment you can pay. And it would be something to ask your subscribers, do they share the same view, that he is that good?
Well, I actually met Babar Azam and Azhar Ali. I've met Azhar Ali a few times, but I met him in England at the bat factory called Keeley's. Do you know the Keeley's down in South London? There's a bunch of ex-Grey Nichols work staff that have opened up their own bat making company with their own willow trees in the backyard. They're a bit eccentric. Keeley's, Keeley, and we were being taken through there on a bit of a mini tour. And they apparently are specialising in some of the top batsmen in the world, making their bats, not labelling it with the brand, but just the bat itself.
No, that practice of small manufacturers, Norman, of producing bats with no stickers on it is quite a common thing with the leading players, because they can get the sweet spot or the weight at different parts of the bat depending on where they're playing, and they have the resources to be able to do that.
Well, Babar Azam and Azhar Ali were there getting bats from him, and it was quite intriguing to have a chat to them, because I just assumed they'd have other locations to get it from. And these guys were. Do you know the Keeley's company? You should have a look. It's incredible.
The only one I thought you were about to talk about a company called Millichamp and Hall, who are a small bat manufacturer based actually on the ground at Taunton. So you can actually go into the factory and see them. And again, this is more my connection with Worcester. Duncan Fernley, he made bats for a lot of the leading players.
Yeah.
He'd take me off to the factory and show him, in even my little way, David, you want a bat? Come to the factory, meet me at 6 o'clock in the morning, and then we'll pick a bat and we'll shape it for you. And it wouldn't be as precise as some of the other guys, but they were. I was only could hardly lace their boots as a batsman, but
Yes.
they're these other that was to bat, to try and save the game for 2 days. That is like Mike Atherton in Johannesburg. That's the type of innings, and the level of concentration that you needed to bat in Karachi was, and they were challenged. And I agree with Cummings that Swepson bowled a lot better than the figures would suggest. And I would have to say kept on going, which I think was to his credit. And if my memory serves me right, Norman, I think one of Shane Warne's early spells, I think against India, he went for masses. I think in that test match where he got Ravi Sastry as his first wicket, caught by Dean Jones running in from the boundary. I don't think his analysis were too clever in that game either.
True. So a guy called Himanshu Rohela, who's online here, is asking who you are. He's not aware of you now. For your knowledge, Himanshu, David Graveney has an immense amount of involvement with cricket, starting one of the being a player himself, having a family of Test cricketers, also being the chairman of selectors of the English Cricket Board. For how long? How long ago was it? For 12 years?
It was from 97 to 2007. So it's
the 10. But I think you were involved. I heard a figure 12 years, but anyway.
I was a selector for 2 years before that, Norman.
Right, so okay, that's the 12.
To 97.
So it's just been wanting to know who. Paul Newman says Swepson will only get better with experience. Hopefully, he had what a baptism for fire for Swepson. 50 overs in his second innings. That was a hell of a lot of overs to bowl in your first test.
What do you think? I think Cummings managed him really well. When he was struggling a little bit, he put him before an interval. He brought him out immediately after the interval to keep bowling. I think that he was certainly one of the players that I was monitoring playing in state cricket as a possible person for Gloucestershire to talk to.
Right.
What you're trying to do if you're recruiting is to find somebody who's just on the fringe of the national team. So, for instance, Gloucestershire just signed Nazim Shah, who played in the first Test match. Young guy who actually played against Australia in Australia when he was really, 17 years old or something like that, and actually got Harris out and Warner out in his first Test match. But you don't know. You want them to play for your country. And Gloucestershire signed Marcus Harris as well. You wouldn't stop him playing for Australia. So you basically you want the perfect scenario. You want them good enough to be considered for international cricket, but not selected. So actually, they come back and play county cricket and whatever. So, and those situations aren't faced by Australia. Australia, quite rightly, don't allow our guys to come in and play state cricket because their attitude is different. So,
look, there's a lot of discussion about the Australian bowling lineup for the test. The fact they couldn't bowl Pakistan out effectively. Should they have had Scott bowl enough? The form that he showed in Australia. Although Stark bowled pretty well and Cummins did pretty well, I actually think they could afford to get rid of Travis Head from the batting lineup and add another bowler in, an all-rounder like an Agar in place of Travis Head, because Travis Head, his batting's been pretty poor this series. I know he scored centuries in Australia, but he doesn't seem right in the subcontinent, and his bowling's not worthy of being in there. So why wouldn't they consider another bowler like Agar coming in to join Swepson and Lyon and perhaps consider in some way Boland? It's a thought.
Yeah, that is the first thought you make. If you've been out there for nearly 2 days trying to get 10 wickets, have we got enough bowlers? So sooner or later, and I'd have to say some of the decisions that went against Australia are wide by fractions of an inch in terms of LBWs that hit the stumps but were retained in terms of the umpire's decision. That's just the smallest margin you could possibly have. So, and I think that if they'd had a couple of those go in their favour, I think that there was a couple of chances as the last day was wearing on, as it just happened in the same over, which was bat pad on either side. And I would have to say that playing against Australia when Ricky Ponting was standing there, he would have been very disappointed not to have caught that.
Yeah.
Because it was going up rather than down, and it wasn't dying. It was so yeah. They had the chances. So I wouldn't, as long as Swepson is they're physically okay, because these Test matches come pretty quickly, and it was really hot. So it'll be interesting to see how they shape up. But
well,
I can assure you, a finger spinner would find it as equally as hard as, or even harder than Swepson, really. So,
well, Swepson
I'm sure they'll look at it like that. So
there has been some word about Mitchell Starc not playing, because Pat Cummins was grilled in one of the interviews and appeared to be giving hints that maybe if Stark's not 100% fit, he may not play. That was the word that they were trying to portray.
He'll be a huge loss, because he's the one who can make it reverse. So,
yeah. So with the World Test Championship in mind, at the moment Australia leads from Pakistan, South Africa, and India, and the rest, points-wise and position-wise, are unlikely to feature because it's only next year that it takes place. I don't see any other team making it. England, Sri Lanka, West Indies are all not quite they're not figuring in the numbers to be able to get through. And it's intriguing because you could have an India-Pakistan final if Australia were to lose India and were to lose the Lahore Test, which, quite frankly, Australia could well lose that.
When is the cut-off for this? When is the cut-off for when they decide who are the finalists, Norman?
Sorry?
What date is the cut-off in terms of assessing who's top of the league?
It's 23, early 23. There's a date.
Right. There's still a bit of time to go, right? So,
there's a fair amount of time, but England's had a very bad start to it because of the Ashes failure. They've got and they're not playing. It's dependent on who they play. If they beat some of the knows, that's not going to count very highly. And if you play 5 Test series rather than 2 or 3, it's in your favour. There's a certain complicated format. I've had a good look at it. England have unfortunately missed the boat unless they do something dramatically outrageous. And again, against the Western, they drew the first Test, didn't they? This one, I'm not sure where it's heading at the moment, but they have to win Test matches. They can't afford to draw that much, so they're going to be up against it. Unfortunately,
does the one-off Test match against India?
That's true.
Does that count in their calculation?
I don't think so, because I believe that doesn't. I think that was that even though it's been played out of order, it's for the previous cycle.
The 2 tests against New Zealand will count, I assume, and also the Test match against South Africa at the end of the summer.
Yeah, they will be. They'll certainly help. But England at the moment are almost on the bottom.
Yeah, they are. So I've seen the list.
Yeah,
the only way is up, Norman. From that,
sounds like a song. Yeah. But it does look like Australia, India, South Africa, and Pakistan are going to fight it out.
Yeah.
And the way that the format goes, if Pakistan beat Australia this coming week, that puts them in a great position, because they've got several home series coming up as well, apparently. I think even England are playing Pakistan at home at some stage. I'm not sure when, but there's a few home series which will be in Pakistan's favour, and India obviously have a lot of home advantages, and Australia play India at home. So you could well see South Africa are a dark horse. They could still get through, but India, Pakistan's looking likely.
Yeah, South Africa, they've had some success. Beating India was a surprise. but it produced a reaction in terms of the Indian team. Changing the captain, changing the guard to a different degree, and bringing in some of the unlimited resources they have in terms of young batsmen. And what has proven to be the case is that, and this was the phrase used by Duncan Fletcher when he captained India, coached India for a short while, that he thought that Jadeja was the most important player in their team. And he's certainly shown it in this series. I don't know what his injury was because he was kept out for quite a bit. But he balances the team completely. That means they can not get away. They can play Ashwin and Jadeja in the same team. And it's interesting to see, unless you've got evidence the other way, Norman, that everybody has shifted to a 5-man attack. The day of the 4-man attack has gone out the window. Yeah. You don't have a McGrath and you don't have a Warne. No. And England have played them year after year, and it's just like a pincer movement, basically. That a bit like the West Indies in the 80s when there was no limit on bounces. I can remember speaking to Alan Lamb. He said, "Well, what are we supposed to do, Crab? There's only 2 balls we can hit per over because the rest of them are flying over our heads, and even those might be half decent balls." So. And they're very defensive in their field setting. They bowl with 2 slips and a ring and just wait for people to make a mistake. And that was the same with Warne and McGrath. So in the limited times that they were struggling, Warne would go around the wicket and McGrath would bowl just such a challenging length that it was impossible to hit him. So, they just ground down the opposition. Didn't happen very often, but that was always their fallback position.
Now, what do you think about the non-selection of Anderson and Broad?
I'm a romantic, Norman. All right, so start from that base. Is that I think that people want to play forever, and there's no doubt about that. And they are not the same age. Anderson is older than Broad, but I think what you need to do is be able to have a dialogue with the player privately. How do you want to play this? Because in a perfect world, you want them to leave the stage at their beck and call and not decided by somebody else, which fortunately, and sometimes it doesn't work that way. Sometimes you can do it. Sometimes the player get injured and don't come back again. But if these seamers do really well, then will they go back again? I'm not sure that they will, because I think there may have been a way to handle it the right sort of way. I just got the feeling before they went to Australia that they were viewing the Ashes as being a little bit like the last swan song. And it's quite entitled for them to change their mind if they want to. But, you just want them to be able to, like a Shane Warne, walk off the oval, doff his cap, and say, "Well, that's the last time I'll be here." I know that wasn't the last test, but
Well, they both would have known what was going on. They would have known that their time was running. There was running at a time, and they would have known that, surely. And it's now that we had the so-called clean out of England in terms of the coach, the CEOs and what have you, and assistant coaches, has been a bit of a clean out. And with now Strauss in a temporary mode, it's almost like he took advantage of that to take them out of the team. But do you think would they give them a token test match in England, both of them?
I think that would seem to be rather artificial, Norman. I think really just. I hope they have that stage, but as I said, I'm a bit of a romantic as far as that's concerned. And results will dictate that.
I know.
If we win against the West Indies and these young seamers do well, what are you going to do? Leave them out?
Yeah, that's the problem they've got now. I mean, I'm a bit disappointed that Milan was dropped. I'm not disappointed about the openers. I mean, Zach Crawley, he's now got a century. He seems to have kept it. But Lees, I'm not sure about. But in particular, Dan Lawrence at number 4. What do you think of that? He got 90 odd.
he's a talent. He's a definite talent, and I've seen Dan play and grow up over a period of years. I've spoken to or pretty close to Graham Gooch, and he's always rated him really highly. He tended to try and hit the ball through square leg for me too often, but he is different because 16 years old, he left school and took himself to Australia to learn how to play, and he's now reaching the dividends for that. He is a really exciting shot maker. In my mind, he's playing much straighter down the V. Not MCC coaching manual, but just not trying to whip balls from outside the off stump past square leg. But he gets the scoreboard moving, and he's I think he will take his chance, Norman. Don't worry about that. He's a very focused young man, I think if you were asking me who were the best young talent in terms of batting, he'd be in the top three.
Okay. So on the all-rounder,
I agree with you about Milan. In the bigger picture, that seems to be quite harsh.
Yeah, I feel sad for him because he didn't do it. He didn't really put a foot wrong.
But the thing you and I know that memories are short within the game. How much was there a debate about Joe Root not wanting to bat three? And now he's decided to bat three, and he's actually getting 100 after 100. I've never been well. This is more as a bowler, as a captain. I've never really sort of understood the obsession with the number on your back, because if you pointed out to Joe the difference between 3 and 4, all it means is actually you're probably going in when the score's 10 for 2 rather than 10 for 1.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. On the all-rounder, I mean, really, England have had both of them, then probably Flintoff. But I'll tell you what, Ben Stokes, he needs what? He's got 170 test wickets. He needs to get over 200 test wickets with 5,000 test runs. That's right up there. Not quite both of them, but in that same league.
He is an exceptional cricketer and also an exceptional chap, because they're having to stick him together with elastoplast to be able to bowl. He's got bits of his body falling off all over the place. You and I think, I'm not trying to be wise after the event. I said to you, I thought that his injury that happened in the IPL to his finger was a serious injury and takes some time to get over. If he'd been a bowler and used that hand or a spin bowler, that would have been the end of it. But that's the way he can bat. That's the way he played against Australia. So yeah, delighted for him. He's had a tough time. Lost his dad. He's obviously very close to his dad, just delighted for him. He's shown the talent that everybody knew he had. He's just been in a pretty dark place for reasons not related to the way he bats and bowls, but. It's been interesting to see how the England players have reacted to the IPL. They've actually gone the other way to agree, a little bit like Australian players.
Yeah.
Actually, that money is not everything. And actually, I think it really underlines the effect of the bubble and their existence of having a pretty unnatural lifestyle. And just
they get paid pretty well by the ECB and Cricket Australia. They get paid pretty good money.
They are the best players in their country, and they get the rewards that they deserve. I don't know. I don't have a problem with that. And actually, again, talking to my uncle when he played his first Test match for England. This is when he was brought back in the 60s. He learnt on the radio that he'd been selected, and he received a postcard on the Monday to say that confirm. Could you ring back to Laws to say that you're happy to be selected, and then can you arrive on the Wednesday lunchtime for lunch, and we'll have a light fielding practice, and then go from there. I think things have moved on since that period of time, but the fee he received for that was 250 quid. The same thing would have happened in Australia. So and you can see how the women's game is evolving, Norman. Now in England, I don't know whether it's the same in Australia. Probably Australia have had this before. They've all now they're fully contracted, not just the top 12, but a lot more players are on full-time contracts. That actually, as a young girl who's got ability, you can play cricket as a living, which is a huge step forward from what it was before.
It's monumental, actually. It's monumental. It's an incredible state of affairs, really, that we've got players. The Australian women's team. I mean, Alyssa Healy, of course, Mitchell Stark's made a lot of money. So, but her income's around $175,000 to $200,000 a year.
Yeah,
probably more than that now, but at least that. So they're doing okay.
So what about Lanning and Perry? How much would they be earning?
Lise Perry, she's on a similar wicket, a similar amount, but then she has more endorsements through private sponsors and the like. She has her own cafe and she's got a few things going on. She probably on triple, probably into the millions now. She would be because she's more of an endorsements savvy person, whereas Liz Healy's pretty humble. She still is a top player. Gets paid. I think the package is $175,000, probably close to $200,000, which is not bad, but it's not good. Getting there.
But it's an entertainment, Norman. If you're not watched by thousands and thousands like the men's game, hopefully the women's game will go in that direction. Because the World Cup's been good. There's been some outstanding performances, and it's going down to the wire.
Oh yeah. Now Sadvik Bagares has made a comment about have England and New Zealand got a chance for the World Test Championship? I would say no. I'd say we're fairly deep into it now. It's only really Australia, India, Pakistan, and perhaps South Africa. That's about it. Who can? And we're not looking for a top 4. We're looking for a top 2. Don't forget, it's like no semi-finals here.
But it sounds like South Africa have got to beat England and beat them.
That won't happen.
No, that won't happen.
So realistically, it's and because India got a home test, Pakistan had as well. Australia's got the summer series, but they're playing away a lot, which makes me feel, especially if Australia lose the match in Lahore, then Pakistan go to number 1, and even potentially India could go up as well, and Australia would play India in India. So you'd think that would be India's favour. So it looks so. I still reckon it's a Pakistan-India final. That's my thoughts. Which would be exciting.
That would be really exciting.
Oh, God, yeah. Now, a question that I have, where is it being played? Now, the last World Test Championship was obviously in England and played at Southampton in the end, but which was meant to be Lord's initially. Have they decided on the venue for next time, or is it? I
haven't read anything about that. I must admit that would be quite a controversial venue if you're going to play a test match. They'll end up playing if it was India Pakistan, they'll play in the Middle East.
Yeah, but they should have already picked that. They shouldn't have it. I reckon they should have said, right, the winner of the World Test Championship, namely New Zealand, get the Guernsey for the final, even if New Zealand are not involved. That's my thoughts. I would have thought that. But anyway, maybe not. A bit like what happens in, I think even the IPL used to have it where the winner of the IPL would always have their home being the grand final ground and the first ground of the year, which kind of is fair. Anyway, so going back to the top players, one of the themes of the night was around, I'd say that Joe Root, Babar Azam are worthy of 1 and 2. Kohli and Smith are really on the outer at the moment, and Kane Williamson's injured. And they're normally the top 5. You may have to bring in Usman Khawaja temporarily into a position of the top players at the moment. He batted sensationally, really, in Pakistan so far. Babar Azam trumped him, that's for sure.
Well, particularly the view worldwide is that actually opening the batting is pretty difficult these days in terms of the wickets, the bowler, the ball. So Khawaja's done brilliantly.
Yeah. Paul Newman, he's saying he's off. Good night. He's I don't think his name is Paul Newman, but anyway, he is in Sydney here and he's living out in Parramatta when he's off and online. So we're saying goodbye to him as it's now approaching 11:30 p.m. But that's all right. So yeah, that I'd say Babar Azam, Joe Root. You have to still have Williamson, Smith, and Kohli there somewhere. But I think Usman Khawaja.
Well, you've definitely got to have Williamson in because he hasn't played himself out of form. He's just been injured.
Yeah, exactly.
Kohli's going through one of those dips. He's
Yeah.
probably looking at his position, having been captain. And you and I have spoken about the different mental approach that people have got to have when they're not captain. And I can remember talking to, and it actually happened in Pakistan, where Mike Atherton was only judged as a player rather than a captain, and he quite rightly, to his credit, and there were a lot of things that were a great credit to him in his career, basically judged himself on whether he was fit or not on a given day. Whereas when he was captain, he could manage himself, if you know what I'm getting at, Norman, that he could not play half fit, but if he was 90% fit, he could manage himself. But he would want his players to be honest to themselves and to the team, so he had to go by the same book. So he didn't play quite as much, but his back condition.
Even though there's been a bit of a road in Pakistan, I was very impressed with Imam Al Haq and Shafiq, Azhar Ali. They all look really good.
I think they're also, and I don't know what I was expecting, or what I'm saying is considered to be disparaging. I was really impressed with the T20 tournament that Pakistan presented, the way it was presented, the crowds they managed to get, the quality of the cricket. They will benefit hugely from that tournament. And when they get to a white ball world tournament, because there's one in Australia, isn't it, in October, November? Yeah. They will do very well, Pakistan, because they've got some serious players.
Oh, yeah. Incredible talent, incredible natural talent.
Yeah.
Okay, the question here, Yasir Khan, a few of them have been asking, who's going to win the third test between Australia and Pakistan, in your opinion?
In my opinion, I think that depending on how Australia, what anybody says, if you've been in the field for 2 days trying to get 10 wickets, mentally that's going to have an effect on you. And if Mitchell Starc is not fit or is going to be rested, which would be understandable because those conditions were pretty harsh, I'd go for Pakistan. But I think Pakistan, I think they need to make the wicket do something a little bit more, or make it quicker more than anything else. Because if they play on, there could easily be roles reversed. But at Pakistan, every time they play, and Australia are a top team. Nobody should never forget that, and they will draw lots of confidence from their performances so far today. They've managed to get themselves in a situation where they're showing that they can be on the same stage with a team that's quite young, obviously quite short of experience in playing Test match cricket. I think they're doing really well. So
there's been a lot of discussion from the media, and especially with the players in Pakistan, that is the Australian players. They're totally happy with security. They're totally happy with the amenities, with the food, the ability to be taken around, now playing golf. I think it's an ICC, Cricket Australia and PCB initiative to make sure that they sell the fact that Pakistan is worthy of going to. And I think it's a great thing that they're doing. I applaud it, even though they had the problem back in 2009, whenever that was, with Sri Lanka. I'm glad they're giving the Pakistani audiences a deserved look at their own players live in test matches. I think it's good.
Well, I do, and nobody knows the full reason, so I'm not going to be overcritical, Norman, but I think a lot of people were scratching their heads when England pulled out of what was quite a short trip to Pakistan, having Pakistan taken the leap of faith to come to the UK during lockdown and all the things that went with lockdown and bubble scenario to play against England. And I think that there was a view, and that was certainly the view of the PCB about sort of it's not a level playing field, and there was some pretty strong comments being either way, because unless there was a particular reason, and we will never know about the security situation, just by saying we're not coming and not giving a reason why was, I think, could be considered quite rude to do that in light of what the PCB had done.
Totally agree. Well, I mean, yeah, what an age we've got with cricket. You and I we have memories of the Rod Marshes and now in between we've got Shane Warne. It's just a great transition of time now with the way that the current crop that Babar Azam's and the like are taking charge. Joe Root's still there doing very well. But it's just great to see that transition. And we won't see another Shane Warne, that's for sure. But we're going to see the next best thing come along sooner or later, doing something else. And that's what's exciting.
Yeah, now people need to go and play and have conversations with this. And there won't be another Rod Marsh either way.
No.
He was an extraordinary man. I must admit, he in a short period of time of knowing him, working with him, he taught me so many lessons of living, not necessarily cricket, but just how to live your life in the right way, and concentrate on the things that are really important. And that comes out in that Adam Gilchrist tribute to him, which was put together soon after his heart attack, actually. So because I know he must have been on a life support machine for a period of time, or an induced coma. It's just sad.
Where did you look for this the tribute? Because I can have a look right as we.
It happened on social media.
Right,
I'll go and have a look on YouTube as well to see
tribute to Rod Marsh. I'm just doing it as we speak. I reckon it's going to be pretty quick to come up. Yeah, here we go.
The part in a minute, actually, Norman.
It was a Sky News thing.
Cricket legend Rodney Marsh.
I've got one thing for you. I can flick you that for sure. So I've got one here that's just come up. I'm pretty sure that's one that I'll email you actually.
Mark Nicholas spoke very well about Shane Warne, didn't he?
Yeah, well, he had experience with down at
but he wrote his book, didn't he? So.
Oh, did he write the book? Did he? Okay. So David.Graveney.
No, it's just David Graveney, Norman. David Graveney at hotmail.com. Very simple.
Well, you've just announced your email address to the world. Sorry, my mistake. So David Graveney at hotmail.com. I'll send you.
Don't worry. It's
random people now. But
very happy for people to know my email address. Might offer me a job, Norman. You never know.
You never know. Let's see if we get this. I'll just send you one now. It's not going. Why is it not going?
Because we're in the middle of a week, which is probably the way I can describe it, Norman, is multiple Melbourne Cups during a week, basically, because it's the Cheltenham Festival of horse racing, which is taking place about 30 miles up the road at a place called Cheltenham, obviously at Cheltenham. So, and it's being watched by. They've worked out that by the end of the 4-day festival, so Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday's the last day, 250,000 spectators would have gone through the turnstiles to watch this.
Wow. And
most of them are Irish. So
right.
They drink quite a lot of Guinness when they're at it. So
no, there's the Rod Marsh for World
Australian cricket.
There's quite a few. I'll send you. There's quite a few links.
I'll go on YouTube and see what's on that. So when you do when are you doing the review or the sort of preview of the next Test match?
Well, it's on the 21st, which is Monday, right. So probably Sunday night.
So yeah, just keep sending me the link, and then
I will.
See how it fits in. Just
and we'll get some update on playing with Sydney. Still, we'll see how that's transpired. I'm particularly happy with Ben Stokes getting 5,000 Test runs, and now Joe Root about to get 10,000. They're great milestones, and I just love to see Ben Stokes get into the over 200 wickets. He's got 170. He'll get 200 eventually, and that's.
But I think him bowling the amount of overs, I think, is a bit of a clue to how they're having to manage his fitness. But even if he only bowls a limited amount, and He can bowl a
Right.
spell but when he gets into a spell, you've noticed it. He won't give the ball up. It just keeps bowling, and the damage that does to him is can be quite extensive. So
He's a tough competitor, that's for sure.
yeah, but they look to have a really, I think they've got the right wicketkeeper. I think they've got Bairstow in the right position. So I think their side's taken shape really. So.
But in Saklan Mahmood, he looked like he was bowling beautifully, actually.
No, he can bowl. He's again, he's a product. Lawrence, Mahmood, Fisher are all products of the under-19 setup.
Oh,
in
really?
The period that I've been involved. So delightful, three delightful guys, different backgrounds, but they're talented. So and the conundrum, as we've spoken about before, if the young seamers do really, really well, then what does that? I'm sure Brody and Jimmy would want them to be successful to a degree, but they obviously want the opportunity to come back and play. But
I reckon there's
you can't stop that clock going around, Norman. Unfortunately, so as much as we'd like.
What the fitting test that Anderson and Broad bowled is the one against India, because that was meant to be played last year.
Yeah.
So that would be fitting to have Anderson and Broad play that test.
That's a good way out. Transmit that to the ECB, Norman. You'll be fine.
I will. I'll go and have a little word in their ear somehow. But okay, I better ask the question: who's going to be the next England coach? Who's going to be the chairman of the selectors? What's going on there?
I've exchanged some conversations with Andrew Strauss about something. Well, it actually was to do with Rod Marsh. I don't think it will be him. So, in terms of still being the managing director of England cricket, so yeah, I think it's a blank piece of paper, Norman. So I wouldn't dismiss.
But aren't they meant to be making that decision during this series? Because the Australian coach is going to be announced during the Pakistan series, apparently.
Well, I don't know. Strauss has been out there a long time. I'm sure he is, because the ECB have got a few things on their plate here. They've got to find a new chairman of the board, which they haven't. So they haven't got a chairman. There's lots of speculation around Tom Harrison, whether he stays, goes, or whatever. They haven't got a coach for the first team, so there's a few. And at one stage, the women's team was, it only takes 2 or 3 defeats, and everybody jumps on their back. But that'll be a crucial game in that World Cup of New Zealand playing England. I think that's the winner takes all, isn't it? Or the loser starts packing their bags.
So, but I mean, have they got who's the head of selection at the moment of England?
Well, Strauss has obviously been heavily involved in it, as is Collingwood. There's a guy called
Strauss is the acting CEO, whatever, and Collingwood was the acting coach. But is there a chairman of selectors?
No, because Chris Silverwood took that over. It's always been an interesting debate. I don't know whether it's the same in Australia. Australia have always supported the selectorial system.
Yeah,
there's been a move here from time to time where the coach wants complete control until it goes wrong. I share the view that actually cricket is such a complicated game to watch that actually you need people on the outside looking in. So if we're taking Bailey being now the chairman of selectors in Australia, who does he work with now? Captain?
Well, it's a bit confusing because you've gotten rid of Silverwood, you got rid of Giles, you got rid of the Thorpe. There's not much left. There
was still another selector, James Taylor, the little lad who had heart surgery. So he's involved in that. So I think. I think what they want is it's just a relationship. I think, but whatever the selector is called or selectors, what structure then feeds into the captain and the coach. I get the feeling that the likes of Joe Root and of Owen Morgan is that they are, dare I say it, old-fashioned captains.
Yeah.
They actually the ones that want to make the decisions and run the dressing room. So anybody after that, it's not to say they won't be consulted, but they want to be responsible for the decisions. So if they do drop players, the players know that actually that comes from the captain.
It's going to be interesting. I mean, the Australian coaching job, I mean, Andrew McDonald's in the interim, I can't imagine he or Collingwood keeping their positions. They're interim.
Well, you never know what the powers would be. Win a couple of games, Norman, and everything goes out the window. So.
Well, effectively, Andrew McDonald hasn't won a game yet. He's had 2 draws.
Well, Collingwood's in the same boat, isn't he? So
Yeah.
He's been part of a coaching group that got hammered 4-0. So, but I've seen Andrew McDonald work in domestic cricket in the UK. He's good.
Oh, he seems to be quite a very handy assistant coach.
Yeah, well, it's a bit like Collingwood. It's a bit like vice captains and captains.
Exactly.
The exceptional vice captain. Do you want the whole thing and be completely exposed? But
I think it's wrong to give assistant coaches the coaching job because they need someone to steer. They can be advisory to them, but they aren't the steerers, and that's probably where I don't agree. I don't think.
I've always felt the Australians have the view that actually that if the coach is too centrally involved in selecting the team, that actually how can a player come to the coach and say, I've got an issue with this? Because they are then compromising that in their own mind. That can still work that way. But it's of course, Justin Langer did maybe his style would suit England.
Well, that's what people are saying.
Yeah, they've gone a bit off the track.
But we may get Travis Bayliss. That's the other question. He's quite standoffish, isn't he? He's not. He's more of a man manager than the coaching style.
I think he's a little bit in the Fletcher mold.
Yeah,
they don't say a lot, but if they do,
they listen.
And his track record of the franchises has been very good, isn't it? And I've only met him a couple of times, Norman. You probably know him better than me, but he just seems a really nice guy who goes about his business.
He's tremendous. He's such an interesting guy to talk to. He's so insightful. He was one of the best cricketing brains, I must say. And he did a great job in Sri Lanka. He did a great job in England.
Fletcher's the same.
Yeah. I know.
Anyway, Norman, I've got to peel off. So
all right, thanks, David.
Great to speak to you again.
I'll give you a link for Sunday. All right?
Yeah. Okay. Take care, Norman. Speak to you soon.
Everyone, thank David. He's been fantastic. He's given us insights across the board. Amazing to talk to someone like David Graveney. Do you all realise he was the chairman of selectors for England, for the England Cricket Board for 10, 12 years, still currently heavily involved with selection processes in England. His uncle, Tom Graveney, is it Tim or Tom? I can't remember. Tom Graveney actually played for England and scored an immense amount of runs. In fact, I think Ben Stokes just went past him just now. So great calibre. He selected the Michael Vaughns and the Freddie Flintoffs and that era. So incredibly knowledgeable. Knew Rod Marsh very, very well. Knew Shane Warne very well. Very privileged to have him here. Is Pat Cummins a great captain? Himanshu Rahela is saying, I don't think so. I'm sorry. He's not a great captain. He's doing a pretty okay job, but he's just lacked something in that last test, and his decision to put Labuschagne in the bowl the second last over and then ultimately the last over with Swepson was a mistake. Showed inexperience. ODIs are certainly less played these days. T20 has come to the fore and Test cricket has returned to the fore. So that's the trend I'm seeing. You'll notice I put out interviews for Josh Hazlewood and Pat Cummins. They're playing golf, and there are 4 bowlers. Hazlewood bowling, Staketty and Cummins ball bowling. So all having a game of golf at the Lahore Gymkhana there, golf club. Then you've got Australians arriving with the Pakistanis through from Karachi to Lahore. It's quite impressive indeed. And then we had the head coach Saklain Mushtaq talking about the Pakistan team. A lot of great videos are out there now, guys. So go and have a look at them when you finish off this call, if you want to. There's plenty there. And if you are watching and you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. That's integral to what goes on in this channel, is to be able to provide me with that ability to, do our best to get people to watch this show. So we've had quite a good soundboard here. Just trying to find out what's this. This show is called what is this show called? Live Top 5. We've got 1, 2, 3. We've got 1, 2, 3, 3, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 6, 7. I've done well. Any other questions, guys? Stark to Brendan McCullum. What do you mean the munch? You mean the delivery of Stark bowling to Brendan McCullum? Yeah. Brendan McCullum was an exciting batsman, to say the least. Great to watch. Overturn or rank turner kind of pitches that are being made by India, but Pakistan makes neutral pitches which benefits visiting sides equally. Yes, they do. And look, I don't really care whether it's a batting deck, a road, or a spinning wicket, or a fast bowler's wicket, or humid conditions, or Australian bouncy pitch. You're playing in that country. You're playing against that team. Live with it. Accept it. Embrace it. Beat them at their own game. Don't fear them, as what India doesn't do anymore. Pakistan have been great. They batted really well. I mean, 5 of their top 6 batters have scored centuries. Imam al-Haq, 2 centuries. Shafiq scored a century and almost a second and a 40-odd. Then Azhar Ali's only batted really once, probably, and he got 185. Then you've got Babar Azam with 196. So the top 4 all scored centuries. Then Fawad Alam, he's one that hasn't scored any runs with his unusual technique. And then, of course, Rizwan, batting at 6, has. So 5 out of the top 6 batters in the Pakistan squad have scored 1 or more centuries and some very big centuries. But Australia's only had the one lone hand, that is Usman Khawaja with 160, and even a 40-odd not out. He, to me, is the one that's batting out of his skin. Some of them got 90s, but they didn't get centuries. That's what you judge by, I'm afraid. Australia wins the 3rd test. I think Pakistan's going to win. If Pakistan win the toss, they're winning the match, as far as I'm concerned. I'm quite sad from Australia's performance in the 2nd test, and I think Ashton Agar should be the better option. I think he should be too. Swepson tried his guts out, but didn't do very much. Lyon was okay, but not good. And yeah, I mean, Boland should be in there. Agar should be in there. Hazelwood's not going to get a Guernsey. Stark looks like he may need to be rested. It's going to be interesting to see who they play, actually. They should play an extra bowler. Drop Travis Head, in my opinion. That's my humble thoughts. That's what I would do. All right, guys, any other questions? Who can open in the ODI series Australia? Well, Aaron Finch is going to stay there and probably Warner. Then there's a few Josh Philippe and a few others floating around there in Josh Inglis. They're all floating around there. They could all end up playing, couldn't they? So what do we got here? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7. Okay. Any other questions, guys? Okay. Norman, we talked about that already. Why Pakistan don't play? Marcus Lawrence has got old Munchie's commented my status. Well, come and watch the show. Not my Facebook page. It's when the claws come out, you think, oh. That's true. All right. Kohli is almost becoming good for nothing. Well, I wouldn't say that. His batting average has dropped under 50, which is quite a shock. He's still there, don't worry. He's not going anywhere in a hurry. But Joe Root, look, almost 10,000 test runs. Ben Stokes, over 5,000 now. Both commendable. Usman Khawaja's in the 3,000 mark, but he'll race to 5,000 and now will join some of the elite batters in the world. Again, my top batters at the moment are Babar Azam and Joe Root. Usman Khawaja's ranked 3rd. I would put Labuschagne to the side. Steve Smith hasn't gone that well. 4th, still put Kane Williamson in there. And the 5th batter will probably still be Kohli. With Rohit Sharma, perhaps. Or maybe even Shreyas Iyer coming through as well. We might see him take the mantle before too long, which would be quite impressive, wouldn't it? Let's have a look here. Yeah, we've got plenty of people have watched these little videos. Even Pat Cohen's had a bit of a go. Yeah, there's quite a few there. Could do with a few more with Sakran Mushtaq. He's worthy of more attention there. And the live, of course, which is happening now. And the shorts, well, that's not as good as it should be. All right, guys. What else we got here? Will Sweps get a chance in the third test? I'd say so. Who's going to win the third test? I'm thinking Pakistan. But it will be close. No, I think Pakistan's going to win well. Fazal Khan, your opinion on Abdullah Shafiq's technique? I think it's fantastic. Will Sweps get a chance? He probably will. You're keeping very kind with Kohli. No centuries in the past 2 years. Yeah, but you can't knock his overall record, though. He's still, okay, 49.95 batting average. Still brilliant. Still enormous runs. He's got over 8,000 test runs. I mean, you can't knock that. You can't knock it, I'm afraid. You got to put it in perspective, guys. Absolutely a brilliant effort, really. Quite frankly, it's brilliant. We certainly have to applaud some of these players for their efforts. They've been fantastic. Cannot downplay the performances that we have seen. I like the camaraderie between Australia and Pakistan, going to the games together, going to traveling together. I really like all this. You've been okay. 60. Well, it's certainly dropped off. All right, guys. What's your opinion of Khawaja's technique? I think it's fantastic. Perfect for subcontinent. Very much subcontinent in his way. Deserving of his place, and hopefully he'll play long. Do you believe Australia has been finding it very difficult to decide to decode? Yes, absolutely. Fazal Khan, definitely. They've had a lot of problems, and they're going to get worse. And Sri Lanka, even though Sri Lanka aren't as strong as we all know they can be, it's still going to be hard for them to play against them. And then obviously India is going to test them absolutely no end. No fear that they're going to have their hands full there, that's for sure. Absolutely have their hands full. Good luck to the golfers. They're having fun. We Pakistan want Australia should come back to Pakistan 2 times a year. We're big fans of Australian superstars such as Steve Waugh, Adam Gilchrist, Ricky Ponting, Brett Lee, and Clark McGrath, and many more. Thank you. I guess it's worthy of a thank you. No, it's been a great series indeed. ASAP Khan, App Khan. I'm not sure what you mean with that. Are you watching England versus West Indies? Not at the moment, but I will be. What is the score between England and West Indies? I mean, Ben Stokes. I say it was Ben Stokes. Bangladesh West Indies Women's World Cup. That was a good game. ODI here.
Looking to pick up a wicket.
Looks like an ODI. Jensen versus. There's an ODI going on between Bangladesh and South Africa at the moment. Yeah. All right. All right, guys. I'm coming to a close here. Fasal Khan is saying, from which country am I? Okay. I'm from Australia. I was born in Australia. I'm living in Australia. That's what I was asking. What else? All I thought I was to tell you. If I knew the question, sorry, I didn't quite get the question. So, guys, any other questions? Because we're about to go. We've been on air for 1 hour and 20 odd minutes. It's been fantastic. Kohli is still good, but we are talking from top 5 batters at the moment. And for me, it is in the following order. Root, Marnus Labuschagne, no, I don't agree. Khawaja, yes. Smith, no. So you're giving 3 of the top 4 berths to Australia? No way. Smith hasn't played well for a while. Kane Williamson, certainly. But is also about... You can't not include Babar Azam. I'm sorry. Joe Root, Babar Azam, Khawaja, Kane Williamson. They're my top 4. And you'd have to put Kohli by default. But I support Aussie because they have played good cricket. I agree. But I'm just saying to you, Babar Azam has to be included in that top listing. There's no doubt about that. He has to be included. No fear at all. Let's have a look here. Lots of dot points all of a sudden. There's a lot of good comments about there. Of course, about this as well. 15 watching this. What we got here? Pin to that one. Okay. Mood is great. Okay. Okay. A lot to be said there. Chill time. Certainly there's a lot of chill time going on. Some of the old videos that had Uncle Hal, that was kind of fun. All right. Okay. Kane hasn't played much in the last few months here because he injured his hamstring, I believe. Root and Smith are good in Test, but Bubba is good in all 3. I agree. Bro, who do you think was going to win the World Cup 2022? You mean the Women's World Cup or the men? Men's, okay, men. Women's, I say Australia. Men's, won't be Australia, even though I was at home there. Australia won last year. One of the subcontinents, Pakistan or India. And the 23 World Cup. Is it 23 World Cup? I don't even know if they're responding. I can't remember. The World Test Championship will be between Australia, India, Pakistan, and potentially South Africa. But I think it'll be an India-Pakistan final. That would be good to watch. Absolutely good to watch. Be a lot of interest there.
Marsh has died at the age of 74 after a heart attack.
Yeah, that's some bad news there. All right, guys. We're coming up to 1.5 hours. It's now past 12. I think I've had my little run there. So if you like and share the post, subscribe to Eyes on Cricket with Norman Kochnick. Hit the notification bell for more talks. You've got my Twitter and my Instagram. Would you please join my Twitter and Instagram? They're lagging for me. And Norman Kochnick, of course, has my Facebook and my LinkedIn page. All right, guys, so just join into those locations and we can be able to have a good long look at this Test cricket world that we all know. Huh? The World Cup 2022 will be won by a subcontinent side, World Test Championship, subcontinent side, with Australia winning the Women's World Cup coming up the next few weeks. They're going to be pretty hard to beat. In fact, they will not be beaten. They can't be beaten. Explore quickly. So Kane, that would be interesting to listen to what he had to say, actually. Very impressive man. Kane hasn't played much. I don't think there's much more we can talk about there. All right, so again, view, like, and share the post. Hit the subscribe button there for Eyes on Cricket with Norman Kochnick. And then we have both the Instagram and the Twitter, as well as my Facebook and LinkedIn pages are also evidence there as well. So, yeah, I've got it all there for you. So it'll be interesting to see what pans out in the Australia-Pakistan match, which I'll be talking about in a preview on Sunday with the likes of David Gravity. But it'll be interesting indeed. So, what are you drinking? I drink Coca-Cola. I shouldn't be, should I? Himanshu Rebella should not be drinking Coca-Cola, but I am. Bad me, but it keeps me awake. That's what I would have to argue. It keeps me awake. Satish Soroya, so how come you seem to be rating Kane highly compared to Smith and Marnus. Well, not rating Kane. He's injured, so we've got to give him the benefit of the doubt. Smith has just not been playing well for quite a while. Marnus has had a pretty good time of it, but the last few matches he's starting to wane on. He hasn't proven himself until he's had a slump, and he had to get out of that slump. Then I can support him, and that's when I'm going to support him. All right. That's it, guys. All the best to you. We'll talk to you more tomorrow.